We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team all Carlton knows. With all the champions they like to send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team old Carlton knows. With all the champions they like to send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark Blues.
Gone but not forgotten. Don't think of him as gone away, his journey's just begun. Life holds so many facets, this earth is only one. Just think of him as resting from the sorrows and the tears, in a place of warmth and comfort where there are no days and years. Think how he must be wishing that we could know today how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of him as living in the hearts of those he loved, for nothing loved is ever lost, and he was loved so much. If we could just ask everybody to move in closer so they're in front of the speakers so they can hear. Thank you. Albert Albie Crisp. I speak today of Albie. He would be so very happy to see you all here today supporting those that he loved. He would be so honoured at the Guard of Honour formed by his beloved Scotchtown Football Club. On behalf of Albie's family, I warmly welcome you and thank you for being here to say farewell for now to Albie. I would also like to welcome those who couldn't make it today but will be watching via the live stream in the future. My name is Ali Dennison, and along with Jesse and his colleagues at Parkside Funerals, we are honoured to conduct this service for Albie today. When I received the call on Tuesday afternoon asking if I could officiate Albert's service, I knew time would be tight, but saying no wasn't an option. I am so privileged to be here today. The family wish to express their gratitude today and invite you to share some fond memories of Albie and join them for refreshments at the Blackberry Inn at Forest at the conclusion of the service. We know that Albie loved his refreshments. I would ask you now, as a sign of respect, to turn your mobile phones onto silent, unless, of course, the ringtone is Carlton or Scotchtown Football Club theme songs. Albie was a loving partner to Pauline for 30 years, a devoted father, father-in-law and friend of Gina and Rob, Andrea and Leighton and Simon. Simon is sadly no longer with us, but is now reunited with his dad, and it is Albie's wish to be buried with Simon here today. I can only imagine the conversations that are going on up there. Albie was a loving great pop to Adam and Nicole, Kirby and James, Megan, Bryce and Chelsea. He was also an adored great pop of Bree, Joel, Della, Ashlyn, Isla, Skylar, Ruby, Maya, Titan and Storm. Albie, they will all miss their catch-ups with you at the block. One of Leighton's retirement tasks was to help you with your block duties of mowing and looking after your safe haven. I'm sure he will continue to do that for you, Albie. Albert was also a loving stepfather and friend to Cindy and Ricky, Anita and Jody, Darren, Kylie, Leighton and Monica, his step-grandchildren Zeke, who is sadly no longer with us, Rhiannon, Nathan, Zachary, Tyler, sadly no longer with us, Khan, Dylan, Corey, Braden, Mitchell, Satina, Sydney, Taylor and Hunter, and step-great-grandchildren Xander, Harper, Scarlett, Sawyer, Carter, Willow, Alaska, Tyler, Darcy, Matilda, Huxley, Imogen, Vincent, Ezra and Violet. There is a whole lot of love there in those families. Anita speaks very fondly of her stepdad Albert, and although Pauline's children were older when they joined the Crisp family, Albie was always there for them whenever they needed him. A stepfather makes the choice to love when they didn't have to, and for that the extended family are forever grateful. Pauline's family loved that Albie cared so deeply for their mum and always had her back. Albert's passing at the Northwest Regional Hospital was a bit of a shock to family and friends. After a few small strokes leading up to his admission and developing pneumonia, Albert didn't regain consciousness again. He slipped away peacefully on the 7th of April. Therefore, it may feel like you never got to say goodbye, and this will impact each of you in a different way. Take comfort in knowing today that your grief is being honoured. Use your memories as part of your grieving process, which will be different for you all. The only secret to dealing with grief is to grieve, so don't rush this process. While we think of Albie's passing with sadness and regret, I am sure he would want us to recall his life with respect and happiness, and he would love us to keep his memory alive, of course with a few pranks and humour, while whistling a happy tune. Albert left his earthly life in his 83rd year, and he would have turned 84 next Monday. This is going to be a hard first for the family, having this day so soon after Albie's passing. It will be all the firsts that will be difficult as you navigate life without Albie's physical presence, but look for the signs and the memories that confirm he is still here with you in some way. When talking with Andrea on Tuesday, she said her dad would have liked his service short and sweet. No religion. So we will honour his wish for the no religion. But for a very popular, well-respected member of our community, we have some great stories to share. I will now read to you the eulogy from Albie's daughter Andrea and his brother Brian. Albert was born in Wynyard on the 15th of April 1941 to Walter and Mary, Molly, Crisp. Albert and his brother Brian went to school at Sisters Creek, Somerset and Redcar. He played football with the Stanley Seagulls and won the grand final in 1962, coached by Lindsay Webb. Albie then went on to play football with the Scotchtown Marrawar Football Club. His son Simon played many games for the Scotchtown Football Club also, where Albie was a life member. After retirement, Albie continued to support the Scotchtown Football Club. Albie and Brian played football together in 1966. Albie loved watching Carlton Football Club games. He worked for the Hydro and then worked with the Circular Head Council from 1965 to 2006, which we will hear more about later. Albert married Dawn Lambert on the 18th of June 1963. They had 3 children, Gina, Andrea and Simon, who is deceased. Albie would bring icy poles to his grandchildren, Adam and Kirby, every afternoon. Albert met Pauline Stokes 30 years ago and has enjoyed spending time with Pauline and her family, Cindy, Anita, Darren, Kylie, Leighton and their families. He adored his grandchildren and great-grandchildren and always had a smile on his face when spending time with them. Albie spent most of his days at the block with regular visits from his good friends. He enjoyed cutting wood with his mates, Rodney and Ping, and his regular visits from Warren and Ray. I am also honoured to read some memories from Albert's eldest daughter, Gina, and her partner, Rob. Gina says, "We had a great childhood living in and around the Hanson Court area. Plenty of kids and cousins to play with. I remember when I got my L plates and Mum and Dad would take me driving in the old auto FJ column shift. I then brought a manual Tirana. Dad would take me over to the old soccer field behind the high school. He'd get out of the car and then, because I couldn't use the clutch, I'd kangaroo hop around the oval. He told Mum that I was hopeless." I did master the clutch and was even allowed to drive him home. Another fond memory was when I had my horse, Rusty. I would go down to Mum and Dad's, tie Rusty to the gate and go in for a coffee. Half an hour later I'd go out to leave, but the horse wasn't there. Dad would come back an hour or so later and I'd ask where he'd been. His reply was, "Just around the block." This happened regularly. Saturdays were footy days, off to watch Scotchtown play. Then back to the club rooms if you ever wanted to catch up with Albie during the day. You would have to go out to the block. If the gate was opened, he would be back, or he would be driving around the streets checking things out. Albie was a well-respected man in the community, and he will be sadly missed by us all. Rest in peace, Dad. Andrea's favourite memories were spending time with her dad and the family at the football. She also remembers fondly of when Albie took them fishing at Arthur River for the fishing comp. As I said earlier, Andrea and the family loved their regular catch-ups at Albie's block. It won't be the same for them without Albie pottering around out there. As mentioned in the eulogy, Albert worked for the Circular Head Council between 1965 and 2006, 41 years of service. I have some great memories of working alongside Albie at the Circular Head Council for close to 10 of those years. He was always happy and joking, always had a smile on his face, and you usually heard his whistle before you seen him. Albie came to save me and my baby son around 20 years ago from a snake that had slithered into my garage at Sampson Avenue. I was washing my car at the time and my son was scooting around the garage in his baby walker. The snake was very interested in my son. Not knowing what to do, I called on my colleagues for help. Albie and Marcus pulled up in the council ute, armed with a shovel and a rake. Albie had a whistle and a cheeky grin on his face. Albie suggested that Marcus distract the snake so he could come up behind. Albie ensured that snake never hurt anyone again. Even though he was petrified of snakes, which you will hear about soon, he would protect a child to any length. Some of Albie's long-serving workmates from the days on the outdoor crew at the council were Splinter Blizzard, Ray Bredmore, Jack Ralston, Trevor Polk, Bruno Johnson, Ronnie Billett, Graham Horn, Buzzy Horton, Pee Wee Williams, Jerry Humphreys, Greg Johns, Tony Bucknell, Kevin Pike, Doug Branston, Quack Ralston, Bevan Aitken, Graham Bellinger, Neville Bellinger, Rodney Beswick, Leighton Ling, Neil Wills, Brian Blake, Grant Scott, Marcus French, Scott Johnson, and possibly many more that I've missed. But wow, what a crew they were. Even though a few of these men are no longer with us, so many stories live on amongst them. I would love to share a few of them with you now. Donald Quack Ralston said, "You always had to be on your toes with Albert. One memory was when Albie used to put a matchstick in the handpiece of the two-way radios in the council utes, so everyone could hear your conversation. It could be very embarrassing for anyone that was caught out. Albie could be very serious when in fact he was actually bullshitting. Quack quotes that Tony Fletcher once said that Albert Crisp was the toughest opponent that he'd ever played against. Brian Blake worked with Albie for his entire working career until retirement. Brian's strongest memory was back in the 70s. Albert supervised a gang of unemployed volunteer workers, so to speak, who constructed a lot of the old footpaths that are still around town. Albie would deliver those workers to the job sites in a canopy on the back of a ute. The concrete was all mixed by hand. Albert was a very honest and reliable worker, going about his daily tasks without any fuss. He was petrified of snakes, and it wouldn't matter how far away he seen one. When you looked around, you wouldn't see Albert for dust. He was just a great bloke to have around with his witty sense of humour. Graham Horn remembers Albert as a beautiful whistler. Whistled all the time, but also had a beautiful tune. Graham remembers fondly when Albert used to walk through the council yard, often ignoring people. He would walk past the Parks and Gardens shed without saying a word to the crew. But when it came to the weekend, Albert would like to borrow a mower to take home to mow his lawns. So over to the Parks and Gardens crew he would go, with a changed attitude. In this particular instance, he asked Scott Johnson to borrow a mower for the weekend. Unbeknown to Albert, Scott was one step ahead of him, and he'd already removed the mower blades in ready for Albert's request. The weekend passed, and when Scott questioned Albert on Monday, "How did the mower go?" Albert's response was, "She went like a charm and never missed a beat." Jerry Humphreys. His memory was Blakey sent Quack and Albie to the main pump station to give it a good steam clean. Albie was to be the watcher and Quack was on the bosun's chair. Albie lowered Quack into the hole with the steam cleaner nozzle. At the time, Albie saw a problem and said to Quack, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Quack said, "She'll be right, Sol," and hit the trigger. Quack immediately started spinning in circles and said to Albie, "Quick, turn it off." Albie just shook his head and walked off, leaving Quack spinning in circles, and went to his bus to have a cup of coffee. Marcus French and Albert were working in front of a certain house in Smithton, no names mentioned. They needed some water to water down some gravel. Albert said, "I'll knock on the door and see if they would let us use some of their water." Albie knocks on the door and an older lady comes out. She starts into Albert, in his role as a council worker, about concerns she had about her deteriorating driveway. Albert, quick as a flash, responds, "Sorry dear, we work for Telstra, not the council." When he jumped back in the vehicle, he said to Marcus, "Fuck her, she can ring the top office about that shit." Albie unfortunately lost his licence at one stage and would rely on Marcus to run him home after work. Albie would say, "Come along, Mark, you know what to do. You better take me to the blood pressure shop," which was the bottle shop. Albie would grab 2 big bottles of beer, and if Marcus didn't have footy training, he would have to drink one with him. Otherwise, Albie would say, "Off you go to training, Mark," and he would drink both. I would like to now invite anyone up that has a story or would just like to say something about Albie.
I'll just tell you a little story when I'd played footy with Albie, one of the toughest blokes that I've ever known. I lined up on this bloke that had a big record and was supposed to be so good. He'd come from north. And he started to give me, I was only a kid, and he started to give me a bit of elbow and feet and all that. Now we said, "Come here." And he went over there and he gave it to him. He said, "Take that, you bastard." And never seen the bloke again. Another time, a bloke kicked him. And now we said, "You dirty bastard." And he took off this bloke through the fence and Albert round there and hoed the boots in him. He said, "Here, now we're even." No, he definitely was a character. Tough man. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank everyone for being here today, and for those that don't know me, I'm Taylor and I'm Albert, and Albert was my pop. There's many memories I share with Pop. Afternoons at the block, super slow drives in his bus, and I can't forget the many stories that he often tricked me into believing. Pop was a man of kindness, humour and unwavering love, especially towards all of us grandkids. And if there's one thing I know for sure, it's Pop's legacy will continue to live on through all of us. And I am so grateful to have been loved by him. Rest in peace, Pop.
One thing we did here was that the traffic will flow freely around Smithton now. So let's be grateful that Albie was part of our lives, and let his influence, his character, his warmth, his deeds and his great sense of humour live on through us. We've now come to the part of the service where we commit Albie's body to the ground. Albert, you are so dearly loved. You are in our hearts and in our minds, and we'll carry you with us as we move forward with our lives. Everything you have done is still done. Everyone you love is still loved. Everything we've learnt from you is still learnt. And so we will let you pass from this world for which you did so much, for which you continue to do. Because when we walk this earth, we walk it with you. You leave us with the strength and the pride to do what is good and what is right. And your memory will guide us, just as you did when you were at our side. For this we say thank you and goodbye. Earth to earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Farewell, Albie.
He sends his pure, sweet love, a sign from above, on the wings of a dove. When troubles surround us, when evils come, the body grows weak, the spirit grows numb. When these things beset us, he doesn't forget us. He sends down his love on the wings of a dove, on the wings of a snow white dove. He sends his pure, sweet love, a sign from above, on the wings of a dove. When Noah had drifted on the flood many days, he searched for land in various ways. Troubles he had some, but wasn't forgotten. He sent him his love on the wings of a dove, on the wings of a snow white dove. He sends his pure, sweet love, a sign from above, on the wings of a dove, on the wings of a snow white dove. He sends his pure, sweet love, a sign from above, on the wings of a dove, a sign from above, on the wings of a dove.
It's good to touch the green, green grass of home.
The old hometown looks the same as I step down from the train.
And there to meet me is my mama and papa. And down the road I look, and there runs Mary, hair of gold and lips like cherries. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Yes, they'll all come to meet me, arms are reaching, smiling sweetly. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. The old house is still standing, though the paint is cracked and dry. And there's that old oak tree that I used to play on. And down the lane I walk with my sweet Mary, hair of gold and lips like cherries. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Yes, they'll all come to meet me, arms are reaching, smiling sweetly. It's good to touch the green, green grass of home. Then I awake and look around at the gray walls that surround me, and I realize that I was only dreaming. For there's a guard and there's a sad old padre, arm in arm we'll walk at daybreak again. I'll touch the green, green grass of home. Yes, they'll all come to see me in the shade of that old oak tree as they lay me 'neath the green, green grass of home.